He's drunk on power. He really is. And I think he's abusing the powers of that office. I think right now this country is in a crisis. Really, I'm quite surprised and very disappointed in many of the Republican members of Congress, a lot of them who I know well and respect, but for whatever reason, they are turning a blind eye and making excuses for someone who doesn't deserve to be given this type of leash with the authorities of the Office of the Presidency.
That was John Brennan, former CIA director under President Obama, responding to President Trump. Now let's bring in Dan Bongino, former NYPD officer, former Secret Service agent, and host of the Dan Bongino Show. Dan, welcome. What do you think?
Good to be here. Brennan's panicking, Rachel. There's no doubt in my mind. Listen, John Brennan knows his role in the Spygate scandal. He is the gatekeeper to this entire operation. When you look at liberal media reporting, Rachel, don't take my word for it, from The Guardian or from CNN or other places, you know that foreign intelligence entities were passing information about the Trump team into U.S. Intel. Who was head of the U.S. Intel community in the CIA? John Brennan. John Brennan is the one who started this entire Spygate debacle. So what he's doing is he makes these media appearances. He knows the media hates Donald Trump. So he plays the role. He plays it up. He plays it loudly of the anti-Trumper, the vicious anti-Trumper. And he's hoping to get the media on his side to run cover for his role in the biggest scandal in modern in U.S. history. No doubt in my mind.
Dan, are there others panicking? Because this Spygate issue also started with Christopher Steele, the former British spy, putting the dossier together. Fox News, number one, has now obtained new emails between Steele and Bruce Orr at the Justice Department, his wife working with the GPS firm that was helping to dig up the dirt for the dossier. Interesting coincidence or not there. But emails where Steele was freaking out after James Comey was fired. Oh, my gosh, this whole thing's going to unravel. We're going to figure out what we were doing behind the scenes. Take that and add what we learned overnight, which is that all of a sudden is Robert Mueller panicking a little because George Papadopoulos, who we were told months ago lied to the FBI and is going to turn on President Trump. He's going to burn all this down. We now find he might be going to jail for 1 to 6 months max, number one. And number two, he doesn't have anything. He's not turning on the president.
Ed, if George Papadopoulos starts talking, let me tell you something. There are a lot of people going to be running for the hills because this is really Spygate. It's a big scandal, but it's really 3 sub-scandals. Number one, it's an information laundering operation. That's where Bruce Orr comes in. I'll get to that in a second. Number 2, it's a spying operation. The fact that human spies were used to spy on a political campaign. Devastating. And number 3, there was a setup here. I have no doubt. I spent a year putting together this book and researching it, using 10 years plus of law enforcement experience at the state, local, and federal level. I have no doubt that George Papadopoulos was set up. Zero. The person who contacts George Papadopoulos said, Joseph Mifsud, the Maltese professor, who contacts him in April, right? They contacts him back in March, actually, but meets with him in April and talks about this dirt on Hillary. Ed, he's a Western intelligence asset. He's not a Russian asset. Just look at the research on the guy. Look at what his friends say about him. The guy is in pictures and training sessions with United Kingdom intelligence people, not with Russians.
Pardon me, but what does it tell us then that Robert Mueller is only going to be able to, and it's obviously still devastating for Papadopoulos' family if he's going to jail even for 1 month, but that he doesn't appear to have anything on collusion, which is where this all started.
And Robert Mueller doesn't have anything on collusion because collusion didn't happen. This isn't Michael J. Fox, Back to the Future, okay? We can't go back and reinvent collusion. It didn't happen. The reason Mueller doesn't have anything is because there's no there. By the way, those are the words of Peter Strzok, the lead investigator in the case for the FBI, who texted his girlfriend that about the case. There's nothing there. So what is Mueller doing? He has to shut everybody up and use the power of the federal law enforcement boot to keep everybody quiet. Hence the deal with Papadopoulos. If Papadopoulos starts talking about this initial meeting, about the dirt on Hillary, and it turns out the air quotes here, dirt on Hillary, came from Western intelligence assets and not Russians, Ed, The guy was set up. What other explanation do you have? That's the big scandal here. This was a setup the entire time. It was a baiting operation. I have no doubt about this anymore.
Dan, not fired up about this at all. Maybe you'll get more fired up about this. The governor of your former state having a rough week, said some things earlier in the week about America not being great, then walk them back. Here are both of those sound bites. Then we'll get your reaction. Take a listen.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great.
The expression I used the other day was inartful. Of course, America is great. And of course, America has always been great. When Trump started talking about the slogan, quote, make America great again, is not greatness at all.
Governor Cuomo, again, using the phrase inartful. Dan, what phrase do you use to describe what he said?
Yeah, it ends in a full, but it's disgraceful. No, he doesn't get to walk that back, guys and Rachel. He doesn't get to walk that back. You know, think about it, right? America was never great. You know, tell that to my uncle, Greg Ambrose. You know, he came back from Vietnam, in a box. You know, he died over there for this country. Got a Bronze Star with a V cluster, was shot in the back trying to save his friends for what he thought was a mission for freedom, and what others did too. Tell that to my mother-in-law, who thankfully is still alive, but came into this country legally as a legal immigrant years ago, you know, cleaning airplanes and bringing home the airplane peanuts at night to feed her kids because they had no money, to live in the greatest country on earth. You know, tell that to the boys of Pondu Ho who climbed those hills, shot down by Nazis on the beaches of Normandy, and my grandfather who was on Utah Beach, fought in the Battle of the Bulge. Tell those Americans that America was never great. These are disgusting, disgraceful comments. Cuomo should step aside and resign. He has no business being the governor of one of the greatest states in the country, my home state, which I still love despite its awful political leadership. He has absolutely no business being in charge of that state. These are disgusting comments, and there are no takebacks on this one. I'm sorry. That are some of the worst comments I've ever heard from a politician's mouth in my 43 years on this planet.
Yeah, it is pretty shocking. He's trying to walk it back. I actually think, Dan, that it's just more, it's revealing of what he really thinks. I mean, he can try and walk it back. I think it was a moment of truth for him.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. We appreciate you coming in.
All right, we're going to turn now to some of your headlines. A husband accused of killing his family is in protective custody over publicity surrounding his case. That's according to local reports. Colorado court documents revealing the bodies of Chris Watts' daughters were found submerged in crude oil for 4 days at the company where he used to work. The body of his pregnant wife was discovered nearby. Hundreds of people gathering at the family's home for a candlelight vigil. They were reported missing on Monday. Democratic Senator Bill Nelson is under hot water for lying about the Russians having access to Florida's election system. Many reports say his claims made earlier this month are false and doubt whether what he considers classified information even exists. Governor Rick Scott says his comments make him look desperate.
I assume he's desperate. He's a career politician that doesn't have anything to run on, but you know, this right to vote, people have died fighting for the right to vote. This is important. They shouldn't be out there trying to scare citizens of my state.
The two are set to face off this November for Florida's Senate seat. The latest social media challenge is inspiring kindness nationwide. Well, that's a nice turn. The viral Tip the Bill challenge now encouraging restaurant goers to leave 100% gratuity for great service. Hundreds of Tip the Bill challenge posts are gaining traction across social media.
Wow.
And those are your headlines. Yeah, I used to be a waitress in grad school, so, you know, I wish it was going on back
he'll probably
then.
be mad at me because he doesn't want people to know he's actually a nice guy, but I've been out to dinner with Sean Hannity many times where he gives 100% tip, and he wasn't doing it for some challenge. He does that all the time because he worked in restaurants as a kid, as a youngster, and he wants to do it just
all good stuff.
So.
Yeah, the best tippers are people who used to be in the food service
So breaking
industry.
news, Sean is a nice guy, despite what others say. Making America work again. President Trump's tariffs actually are creating thousands of jobs. You probably haven't heard that, but our next guest says...
Some quick headlines for you. Dunkin' Donuts is beating Starbucks to the pumpkin spice punch. The chain announcing its fall menu items will be ready to order a day before Starbucks Autumn Eats on August 27th. And MoviePass is changing its rules for customers again. The money-troubled movie subscription is now limiting users to only 6 films and certain showtimes to choose from. It's part of the company's transition to a plan that will only allow customers to see 3 movies each month. Previously, MoviePass offered a movie every day. Ed?
I've never used that. I got to figure this out. There's a big controversy. All right. Meanwhile, putting America to work. A new study shows that President Trump's tariffs on imported solar panels, steel, and aluminum is actually creating jobs. The study, conducted by the Coalition for a Prosperous America, reveals more than 11,000 American jobs were created in the past 6 months alone. So what effect will this have on U.S. manufacturing and the broader economy? Joining me now to weigh in, the CEO of Speakerman Media, Lee Speakerman. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Ed. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I hope you are as well. And you turn on almost any other channel, and they say these tariffs are all bad.
Well, that's the establishment economist and clueless politician approach to trade. And thank God we have a president and President Trump who understands that tariffs on imported goods go back to the founding of our country. They were championed by George Washington and Alexander Hamilton. They are bedrock Republican philosophy going back to the Republican Party's first elected president, Abraham Lincoln. And for most of American history, we had much higher tariffs on imports. And during that period, we built the mightiest economy and the highest standard of living in human history. So there's nothing wrong with tariffs. And as you mentioned, already the Trump tariffs on steel, aluminum, washing machines, and solar panels have generated 11,000 jobs, and that's just in 6 months.
Sure.
But, you know, keep in mind, we've lost, we lose about 3.5 million well-paying manufacturing jobs every year because of our $800 billion goods trade deficit in this country. So we've got a ways to go, but we're on the right track.
Right, and important to point out, now to be fair and balanced, we also have to note that the markets have been spooked by the tariffs in some ways, and we've seen uncertainty created by the tariffs. But you pick up the Wall Street Journal this morning, and they have an interesting story about how it looks like maybe the U.S. and China are inching closer to a deal, if they can get some sort of a deal on trade that is more favorable to America, as President Trump has been pushing. I would expect, and you know the markets better than I, that that's going to be a major development in a positive direction.
Well, it is positive if we can reach agreements that are good for our country and that are going to bring back a substantial portion, if not all, of the jobs that have been sucked out of our country. You know, you alluded to China, a $400 billion goods trade deficit, which is, 2 million at least well-paying American jobs. And Ed, you know, the reason this is so important is that a job is not just a production input, which unfortunately is how too many people on Wall Street and too many of their lackeys in the political world approach it. A job is life.
Yes.
And when you have more well-paying American jobs, you have less family violence, you have less addiction, you have less crime, you have healthier communities. So this could be the greatest social program in a generation for our country.
Actually,
but through private sector, through the private sector.
Creating jobs instead of just handing out money, handing out assistance. Lee Speakerman bringing us some important facts this morning about the economy. We appreciate you coming in.
Great to be here.
Okay, thank you, sir. Facebook censoring conservatives like these PragerU videos. Unbelievable. Watch.
Imagine a group of activists so powerful that they could beam their propaganda directly into your brain. Unfortunately, you don't have to imagine it. It's real. It's Hollywood.
Not that controversial. He's just calling it out. Well, guess what? The president is now weighing in about the silencing of Republican voices. We'll tell you what the president just said coming up.
Well, summer may be winding down, but it's not too late to have another barbecue bash.
And one way to kick your barbecue up a notch is to use Stubbs barbecue sauce. You've probably seen it in your local market. And the man who created it, C.B. Stubblefield, known as Stubb, was also a Korean war vet, served his country, earned 2 Purple Hearts.
Rocky Stubblefield is here, is his grandson, and the company's official pitmaster, and he's here with some amazing grilling tips.
What an awesome title, pitmaster.
You are the pitmaster. So what's the main tip that you want to give on grilling?
Well, we got a few things we're going to teach you today. First, we're going to start out with some ribs, of course. These are baby backs. And we're going to show you that when you're cooking them, the first thing to do is on the back of them is a thin membrane of skin. You take that off, and you always use a paper towel. It's easier when you use a paper towel. If you try to use your hands, it's just going to slip out and take you a longer time. But use a paper towel to pull those out.
And that membrane is the thing that would make it, like, really tough.
Yeah. Once it cooks, it's real tough, so it's hard to
So what's the next step?
The next step after that is putting on the rub.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll just go straight to that. We're actually going to use our Stubbs pork rub.
So you guys are more than just sauces. You've got like salts and rubs and other stuff too, right?
Yeah, we have barbecue sauces, marinades, spice rubs.
And are you putting the sauce over the rub?
We're gonna base the sauce onto the
while it's
meat
on the grill.
after it cooks for a while.
All of this was your grandfather's recipe, his idea. You've got like a ton of history around this.
Yeah, like I said, we started in 1968 with a restaurant in Lubbock, Texas originally, but then he eventually moved to Austin, and that's where the restaurant is now.
And that means that's 50 years.
Yeah, 50 years.
Wow, what a legacy.
What makes your sauce special?
We use quality ingredients. We're one of the healthiest barbecue sauces out there.
Healthy?
Yeah.
Healthy barbecue.
We're lower in sugar, lower in sodium than other barbecue sauces.
I'm on a diet. I'm going to crush this right now.
So Stubbs is just one of the better sauces out there. And we're actually the #1 premium sauce pretty much in the country.
You're sold all over the country.
All over the country, even overseas.
All right.
So once you get your ribs rubbed, you're going to put them on the grill.
Look at that.
Look at the final product over here, too.
We usually cook them at indirect heat for about 2.5 hours.
Low and slow.
You're going to be out here all morning long cooking this stuff up. We're going to eat throughout the course of the morning.
We're gonna talk to you later. This one's for me. Thanks, Seth.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're going to go read this now. Several officers now under review after President Trump revokes former CIA Director John Brennan's security clearance. So, who could be next to lose their clearance? President Trump now giving us a hint. I'll take this, Ed, because you're needed. Plus, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Candace Owens, and Charles Payne, all here live coming up.
Bruce Orr and some of the other officials that President Trump says may be next on the list of security clearances that will be revoked.
I think Bruce Orr is a disgrace. I suspect I'll be taking it away very quickly. I think that Bruce Orr is a disgrace with his wife, Nellie.
We know that Bruce and Nellie Orr are the Bonnie and Clyde of collusion.
President Trump was asked about his administration's decision to revoke John Brennan's security clearance.
Security clearances are very important to me. Very, very important. And I've had a tremendous response for having done that. If anything, I'm giving him a bigger voice.
John Brennan is the one who started this entire Spygate debacle.
He's hoping to get the media on his side to run cover for his role in the biggest scandal in modern day in U.S. history.
The expression I used the other day was inartful. Of course, America is great.
He is going to walk away from this experience sorry for being so bad at politics.
This 100-year-old veteran, 100 letters, one of them from the White House.
You have experienced this country's greatest blessing.
Well, we'll get to that, but
we will.
Again, I'm in for Pete today. Great to be here. We've got RCD, Rachel Campos Duffy, and of course the great Ed Henry.
Wonderful to be with you.
It's great to be here. So we have the president talking out about John Brennan. As you know, John Brennan not very happy that his security clearance was revoked by the president. He had some not kind things to say about the president, and so the president, as you might imagine, had some not nice things to say about Mr. Brennan. Take a listen.
I've gotten tremendous response from having done that because security clearances are very important to me. Very, very important. And I've had a tremendous response for having done that. If anything, I'm giving him a bigger voice. Many people don't even know who he is, and now he has a bigger voice, and that's okay with me because I like taking on voices like that. I've never respected him. I've never had a lot of respect.
Whether you agree with the president or not, you just have to look at the airtime that John Brennan has been getting across so many networks. Not necessarily our network, but the mainstream media, your MSNBCs, your CNNs, have been giving this guy untold airtime. Let's listen to what he said on MSNBC about the president and his revoking of his clearance. Take a listen.
He's drunk on power. He really is. And I think he's abusing the powers of that office. I think right now this country is in a crisis. Mr. Trump, time after time, I think has really just disappointed millions of Americans, which I'm trying to give voice to. And so I know a lot of people think that a former intelligence official shouldn't be doing this. I don't consider what I'm doing political at all.
So there are the dueling sound bites. What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's interesting. We just had Dan Bongino on, and he's basically saying, listen, this guy, John Brennan, is the spearhead of Spygate. So imagine, put yourself in the position of the president. Here is the person, the CIA director under the last administration, who started the spying on your campaign and who continues to try to undermine your administration. Would you let him keep a top secret or a security clearance?
This is a man who helped weaponize intelligence against candidate Donald Trump. Fact number one. Fact number two, this is someone who was already under fire when he was the Obama CIA director. All kinds of allegations of human rights abuses, allegations that he was spying against Senate staffers who were doing an investigation of the CIA. Democrats like Dianne Feinstein back then called him out. Now, all of a sudden, he's their best friend. So you have all that. And then since Donald Trump has been elected and has been president, you have John Brennan, a former CIA director, which is supposed to be a nonpartisan position. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, they come out of that job, they go on TV, they talk about terror, they talk about national security.
Right.
Usually in a nonpartisan way. He's weaponized that information now against the president, accused him of treason. And so think about how rich it is. When you think about what Rachel was just talking about in the soundbite we heard from Brennan saying, I don't think any of this is political, when in fact he has suggested the president committed treason, should be impeached. We put together a little greatest hits from John Brennan, and you be the judge. Is this political or not?
Donald Trump has badly sullied the reputation of the office of the presidency. I use the term that this is nothing short of treasonous. I and so many other former national security officials are speaking out because of the abnormal and aberrant behavior of Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump continues to have his ignorance of the facts or willful disregard of them. The Russians may have something on him personally that they could always roll out and make his life more difficult.
So to be clear, this is America. You have free speech.
Absolutely.
Okay? But to go out there and basically weaponize this information and make outlandish allegations against the commander-in-chief, and you don't expect he's going to fight back? Give me a break.
Well, nobody's stopping him from going on TV, by the way. But it is interesting that the left is having a meltdown over the removal of his clearance when, you know, this is unprecedented. So, yes, sure, it's unprecedented to take away the security clearance for a CIA director. It's unprecedented to have a former CIA director doing exactly this on television. And I'm sorry, if you were the president, you'd do the same thing.
We mentioned free speech. One person who probably wishes he didn't have such free speech this week, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who had an, what's the word, inartful comment earlier this week saying, it's his word, America is not great. Then he's trying to walk it back. Let's listen to both the inartful comment and his attempt to walk it back. Take a listen.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great.
The expression I used the other day was inartful. Of course, America is great. And of course, America has always been great. When Trump started talking about the slogan, quote, make America great again, is not greatness at all.
You know, before we spoke with Dan Bongino earlier, each one of us said, what makes America great is that 100-year-old who asked for letters and got 5,500. It is the military heroes that defend our freedom, that died, sacrificed so much of their lives for our freedom.
Yeah, and you know how the president is winning in this argument? Right. Is we are now in day 4 of Cuomo-gate, and as you may dub it, and he is playing on the president's turf. We are still talking about whether America is great or not, which obviously, spoiler alert, it is great.
It is.
And so there are so many liberals who want to just attack this president at all costs that they're fighting on his turf. They're letting their anger get the better of them. That comment, I mean, you heard it was a liberal crowd when he made the first comment on Wednesday.
Yes.
And there were some people who sort of lightly clapped, and others like, what? Wait, what did you just say?
Oh, I didn't
see this crowd.
Well, to be honest, when I heard that clip, I didn't think people were gasping. I thought people were in agreement with him in that room. I think this plays well in the New York primary. I think the problem for Cuomo is the reaction that he got after is like, wait a minute, this is somebody, Cuomo is somebody who wants to run against Trump. And so you're right, he's playing on Trump's turf. And by the way, loving America, thinking America is great is something we used to agree on. Here's Dan Bongino telling on a very personal level, telling us what he thinks about Cuomo comments.
You know, tell that to my uncle, Greg Ambrose. You know, he came back from Vietnam, in a box. You know, he died over there for this country, got a Bronze Star with a V cluster, was shot in the back trying to save his friends for what he thought was a mission for freedom, and what others did too. These are disgusting, disgraceful comments. Cuomo should step aside and resign.
Thank you.
Nice.
You know, we can all sit here and talk about our own personal experiences with American patriotism, supporting our troops. But like I said, when you hear Dan Bongino talk about direct family members that didn't come home after defending our freedom in wars, that really hits home, and you have to think to yourself, Governor Cuomo, you know, what a horrible thing that you said, especially in your turf of New York, where 9/11 happened just a few short years ago.
What makes it particularly awful is that his father, Mario, the late governor,
right,
he was, even though he's complete opposite side from President Trump, loved America. The '84 convention speech that Democrats were wowed by in San Francisco, where he was taking on then President Reagan, was all about loving America from a liberal perspective, no doubt. But he talked about the immigrant story, the Cuomo family, the Italians who came to this country and made something out of nothing. His son is now doing the opposite.
Well, I'll have to tell you, I've sat in a lot of classes in college. This is how the left thinks. I'm sorry. I know it's news flash here. I do think that's how the new left thinks. I think that's why we're seeing Governor Cuomo saying this in the context of an election that he's in right now.
Especially a lot of the left that was born on third base, like Andrew Cuomo, unlike his dad, Mario.
That's very true. Now, we asked you guys what you thought about it, and here's an email from Carl. He says, it would seem that many Democrats, including Cuomo, care more about politics, power, and getting elected. So they want to come up with something against Trump to fight him, and they inadvertently hurt themselves.
Blew up in his face.
This is an email from Rebecca. One thing that makes America great is that Cuomo has the freedom to make that ridiculous remark. If you were in another country, that might cause problems for him.
Yeah, maybe. A tweet from Chio. Andrew Cuomo knows exactly what he said and is not sorry he said it.
Rachel, yeah.
Someone agreeing with me
like
on there.
Testing a message ahead of 2020, and maybe the Trump derangement syndrome went a little too far.
Cynthia Nixon isn't even agreeing with your message. That's probably time to walk it back.
Time to walk it back. Good point, Todd. All right, we're going to turn now to some of your headlines, and we begin with a Fox News alert. The former Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan, has passed away. The United Nations Migration Agency says he died peacefully at a hospital in Switzerland after a short illness. Annan was the first black African to take up the role as UN chief, serving from 1997 to 2006. He leaves behind a wife and 3 children. Annan was 80 years old. Another Fox News alert. 25 people shot in Chicago within 14 hours. One of them, a 3-year-old boy who is in stable condition, thankfully. Another victim was killed. The violence signaling another bloody weekend in the city as Mayor Rahm Emanuel faces backlash for blaming recent shootings on lack of values.
Our kids need that moral structure in their lives, helping develop and nurture character, self-respect, a value system and a moral compass that allows kids to know good from bad and right from wrong.
Heading into the week, nearly 2,000 people have been shot in Chicago this year, according to the Chicago Tribune. An Air Force pilot jumps out of a jet seconds before it crashes to the ground. The military plane developing engine problems after leaving Vance Air Force Base on a training mission in Oklahoma. The pilot safely parachuting down from 2,000 feet in the air. First responders found the unidentified pilot drinking water with a farmer. Grab the tissues. The White House sending a heartfelt letter to a World War II veteran for his 100th birthday.
You have experienced this country's greatest blessing, the freedom and affection of family and friends over a long, well-lived life.
Micah Fabella asking for 100 cards to celebrate his big day, but instead receiving 55,000 cards to his Michigan home. Good job, America.
What a wonderful tribute, and the president deserves congratulations for doing that, but also each one of those 55,000 people making him feel special.
And thank Mr. Fabella for his service.
Absolutely.
From all of us here at Fox and Friends.
Good point. All right. Meanwhile, China's army now likely training for strikes against U.S. targets. This is a big story. How worried should we be? We're going to ask the man who knows, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. He's next.
And America is trendy again. Accessories used to keep our soldiers safe are now the new trend for hipsters. You ruined beer, you ruined Brooklyn, now you're...
President Trump making clear he may be ready to pull the security clearances of embattled DOJ official Bruce Ohr and others.
This as the White House is reportedly drafting documents to revoke even more clearances.
And here to react, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. He's a Fox News national security strategist, a former deputy assistant to President Trump, of course, and he just returned from a campaign rally for Governor Andrew Cuomo. Oh, no, probably didn't, because I don't think he agrees with Governor Cuomo said, and I have a feeling he doesn't agree with John Brennan now claiming, what I'm doing is not political.
Right. A man who has used his paid position in the national media to attack a serving president without